We welcome everybody on planet Earth.
Seriously?
The blue planets, and we wanted to talk a little bit about the stories of indigo, which we think is a very diverse. There's not just blue. So if you see the color blue, you maybe don't even have like a connection to a history anymore. But actually, when you go back, there is so many histories. And we just want to emphasize also that we only can tell a small perspective from our own research and our own personal interests and what our history made us think about this color. So there are many more stories to tell about indigo than we tell today. And I'm going to share my small presentation. Let's go.
By the way, that 左边是玛雅，右边是
Can you see this one?
那个 Sandra， 然后是左
Do you
边
hear
那
me?
个 Yes, we can hear you.
That's good.
Yes, we can.
Super. Okay.
It's
So indigo is like an organic color, which is was the basis for long traditions in a lot of countries, a lot of cultures. It's originally coming from India, or is native in India, and India is also the oldest center where the dye was planted, or was native and was growing, and it came to Europe in the ancient times. But also other cultures already used the color blue. For example, the Egypts, they had like these shells, they made blue out of these shells. So different cultures have different techniques to apply colors. And this is something also we want to emphasize. It is not one way to work with these colors. So that's why we also make this workshop, because we think there is much more we could do with experimenting with colors, with plants, with materials to know these materials in another way, in a way of doing. Then also the Mayans, they had blue. They also mixed it with like clay to make like these wall paintings or murals. Then in Japan you had the isome, the Japanese dyeing technique with the indigofera plant, this plant here. In West Africa, they have a very long traditions of working with indigo. They make these specific patterns which all symbolize something, each pattern. And also the Tuareg people in the north of Africa, they had a lot of blue, also like a lot of indigo. And in Europe, there was the Faberite, it's called in Southeast Victoria, or the Walls. And like Caesar, he was telling that the Celts, they used to paint their faces blue, like we are doing now, to like scare the people, like in the war. So like this blue has a very long tradition also there, and it's like applied for a lot of different reasons. And how to make blue, how to make this indigo, we show a little video. Moment.
I think there's another thing about the blue with like against demons, you know?
The demons?
Yeah, like in Greece and in the Muslim culture, they're like painting the windows in blue to like that the demons don't come in or something like that.
Oh, okay. So this is a small video about how they make the dye.
Before textiles can be dyed with indigo, the dye stuff must be made from plants. There are different ways of making indigo dye. Some people, like the Yoruba in West Africa, make a compost from the leaves.
The Japanese, the other side of the world, exactly the same story. Now this is great for dyeing, but think about trading. You can't trade a leaf compost, which is very bulky, and it's going to go moldy. There's another method, which actually is the secret to indigo's success. The Indians discovered how to extract pigment from the leaves by a magical process using oxygen and water. To produce what is then a durable lump of indigo blue dye stuff.
In India today, the dye stuff is made in only a few villages. One is Kangaroo in the southern state of Tamil Nadu. The process begins by harvesting the plants early in the morning.
Last 30 years we are in this indigo production. My grandfather started this in 1950s in this area. This is seasonal product. We will be start the production in the month of August. Then it will go for 5 to 6 months up to November or December.
The plants soak overnight, starting the fermentation process. Then, the liquid is drained into another tank. The fermentation converts the indigo in the plants to the chemical compound indoxyl. The indigo workers agitate the liquid, adding oxygen. When enough oxygen has been added, the indoxyl is converted to indigo. The blue foam shows that indigo has formed. It begins to settle on the bottom of the tank.
So the oxidation process will be done 2 to 3 hours. Then we will allow for a whole night. The next day indigo will be sedimented at the bottom.
The indigo is strained to remove debris. It's heated to concentrate the dye. Filtered again. Then poured into a press. This indigo will be used in India or shipped to markets around the world as it has been for over 2,000 years.
Concentrated, extracted dye pigment. That's then an item of global trade.
By the beginning of the 16th century and the age of exploration, trade with South Asia brought spices, cotton, and indigo to Europe.
By classical times, indigo is already being traded from India, and that gives it its name, Indicum, Latin and Greek, for this substance from India coming into Europe.
that were made in India. Textiles were a local commodity at a very early time, but they all depended on the skills of processing cotton and dyeing.
So, what I think is very interesting here is really that this moment they started to trade is the color. They had to change it make it in a different condition. So they really had to dry it and get through this process of how you can extract pigments, so you actually can trade and store it. And also what you see in this movie, like now there were a lot of men working. Actually, there were only men working. But for example, in Africa, in the Yoruba people, there is to make this handcraft is really a work of the woman. So the woman actually it's their realm, and the men don't touch it. And it's also a way of keeping the independence from the men. So I think this is also very important to emphasize that, because it's a work like everyone can do. They really, each culture developed their own techniques to do it. And for example, here in the last picture of the movie, where you see the people making, like the workers making these stamps, they had like this, they had these secrets about how to make this color. So it's kind of an alchemy of understanding how to work and how to dye is blue. And in Europe, we had the vote. Maya's gonna tell you now a little bit how was the process of dyeing in Europe.
In Europe as well, the history of indigo or blue dyeing is a very hidden history as well. And some people ask, like, why is this so? Like, why are the things so hidden? And we tried to research a lot yesterday, and also we're talking about how the Swiss history is interconnected to this. We actually found out that in the Middle Age, or in the German term, there's a word which is called Blaumachen, or Blauer Montag, also Blue Monday. And it's really difficult to find a translation to this, which actually you can say is, Blaumachen is to skip work. You don't work, you go off, and you skip work because you want to enjoy your leisure time. So actually what we found out is that the blue color, which was dyed in Switzerland or in Germany as well, was also the color of wood. Maybe you heard of this. Wood is a plant which is not in the family of indigo, but it's also a plant which, similar to indigo, is used with a redox reaction to create blue color. Indigo somehow, or the blue color the Europeans were producing, was not as strong as the indigo color. But the secret how the Western Europeans were using this color was they also had to make some kind of liquids to produce this color, which was very similar in the chemical process like the indigo. But instead of using ashes, as you learned today, to use ashes to produce indigo, in the European times they used urine. So the idea was to pee into the big buckets. And to collect this amount of pee, the only way to do this was also to get the people pee into this bucket. So they used 100 liters of urine, and what even they found out is when people were drinking alcohol, it was better in the quality of coloring the textile. That's why you still, till now, you have this term blau machen. And what I show here also is this indigo, like, we don't know really how toxic it is, but apparently it seems to be quite a toxic color. And that's why also this kingdomly color, so the more toxic it gets, the more appreciated it was. So here you see some pictures of like old historian museums where they have this blue bath of the indigo or the wood, and you also have the wooden block prints. And maybe you saw before the pictures of the Persian version. So you see that there was an exchange already within the culture of like how to produce those patterns as well. Printing blue, like blueprints nowadays, it's also similar to many places in the world. It's a knowledge which has almost been lost. So there are only few little workshops which still print in the very traditional way of blueprinting. So what I want to emphasize is that as well as all over the world, blueprinting is something, or dyeing, textile dyeing, is a knowledge which has mainly been lost.